animal diversity. And for further information, as always, you can see the individual articles on, in this case, zoology, sponge, invertebrate, and vertebrate. Anyway, so animals are multicellular eukaryotic organisms that form the kingdom Animalia. With few exceptions, animals consume organic material, breathe oxygen, are able to move, can reproduce sexually, and grow from a hollow sphere of cells called the blastula. And this is during embryonic development. Yeah, it's very interesting. So continue further. So MES note, blastulation is the stage in early animal embryonic development that produces the blastula. The blastula, or blastula, let's see the pronunciation actually.
Tula.
Let's go back here.
Produces the blastula.
Blastula. Yeah, actually, I think it's pronounced blastula when I Google it or check other sources. It says blastula. Yeah, so blastula. So anyways, continue further. So the blastula, from Greek blastos, meaning sprout, is a hollow sphere of cells called blastomeres. Let's right here, click this.
Blastomers.
Blastomers. I'll call it blastomeres. Surrounding an inner fluid cavity called the let's see this one here.
Blastocele.
Blastocele or blastocu. Yeah, I think it is actually blastocele. So I checked the other sources and it's similar to this one. Anyways, embryonic development begins with a sperm fertilizing an egg cell to become a zygote, which undergoes many cleavages or divisions of cells in an early embryo to develop into a ball of cells called a morula. Let's see this.
Morula.
Yeah, so into a morula. Only when the blastocele. Let's see this again.
Blastocele.
Only when the blastocele is formed does the early embryo become a blastula. The blastula or blastula precedes the formation of the gastrula.
Gastrula.
Precedes the formation of the gastrula, in which the germ layers of the embryo form. Alright, so let's look at that again closely. So you have the blastula is a hollow sphere of cells surrounding an inner fluid cavity called the blastocele. And the embryonic development begins with sperm fertilizing egg, get a zygote, and then undergoes many cleavages or divisions, and then to develop a ball of cells called a morula. And then only when the blastocele is formed, that's an inner fluid cavity, does the early embryo become a blastula. So you need that. And so the blastula precedes the formation of the gastrula, in which the germ layers of the embryo form. So let's just take a look at this. So here's a figure. So there's blastulation. So you have one morula. See the pronunciation again on this.
Morula.
Yeah, so you have morula. Remember, the morula is over over here. So zygote gets a bunch of cleavages, and then it gets over to the morula over here. So into a ball of cells. And that's a ball of cells over there. And then you have the blastula. Yeah, then you'll have the inner fluid cavity, the blastocele forming, and then you get this blastula. It's a ball of cells, a hollow ball of cells filled with fluid there. So gastrulation. Gastrulation is a phase early in the embryonic development of most animals, during which the blastula, a single layered hollow sphere of cells, a single cell layer there, is reorganized into a multi-layered structure known as the gastrula. So basically you have the blastula precedes or goes before the gastrula. So after this one, then you're going to get the gastrula. So you have a setup like this. So here is the blastocele is the inner fluid inside. There's the this is the blastula over here with a single layer there. Then there's the gastrula, which has the germ layers, or the multiple layers here. So you have the ectoderm, the outside, endoderm inside, and this other layer is here, the let's just pronounce this one.
Archenteron.
Or the archenteron, and then there's the blastopore inside, and notice where the blastocele gets pushed out to the outside over there. It's very interesting. Anyways, so gastrulation occurs when a blastula made up of one layer folds inwards, folds inwards onto itself, and enlarges to create a gastrula. So folds inwards, now you have this other layer, which was initially this one layer, now you have it inside here, and it enlarges itself to create a gastrula. This diagram is color-coded, so you have ectoderm is blue, so that's the outer one. Then the endoderm, which is folded inside, that's the green. Then you have the blastocele, or the yolk sac, the inside fluid, yellow, and then the archenteron, the gut. That's purple right there, very fascinating. So a germ layer is a primary layer of cells that forms during embryonic development. Germ layers eventually give rise to all of an animal's tissues and organs through the process of organogenesis. See this pronunciation?
Organogenesis.
Yeah, organogenesis or organogenesis. The gastrula has either 2 or 3 layers, the germ layers. In all vertebrates, these progenitor cells differentiate into adult tissue and organs. Yes, adult tissues and organs. Let's just see the pronunciation here.
Progenitors.
Yeah, so progenitor cells there. So a progenitor cell is a biological cell that, like a stem cell, has a tendency to differentiate into a specific type of cell, but is already more specific than a stem cell and is pushed to differentiate into its, quote, target cell. Yeah, so you have these germ layers of the gastrula, 2 or 3 germ layers, and these are progenitor cells, and they differentiate into adult tissues and organs. So it's already more specific than a stem cell, but it's like it in that it can differentiate into a specific type of cell. But it's more specific, so it's being pushed to its, quote, target cell. So the most important difference between stem cells and progenitor cells is that stem cells can replicate indefinitely, whereas progenitor cells can divide only a limited number of times. And there's controversy about the exact definition. Yeah, it remains, and the concept is still evolving. Yeah, regarding this progenitor cells and differentiating it from stem cells, etc. Continue further. Let's just make this a bit smaller here. So gastrulation of a diploblast. So right here, let's see the pronunciation here.
Diploblast.
Yeah, so diploblast. So gastrulation of a diploblast. The formation of germ layers from a blastula to a 2 gastrula. So you have a blastula right here, and then it folds inwards on itself. Yeah, so this folds inwards, and you get this setup over there. You get the gastrula like that. All right, so a little bit of that. Yeah, so some of the ectoderm cells, the outer ones, orange, move inward, forming the endoderm, the red. So you have the outer ectoderm cells moving, folding it in on itself to form the endoderm in red. So going here is diploblast, so diploblasty. Let's see the pronunciation.
Diploblasty.
Yes, so diploblasty is a condition of the blastula in which there are 2 primary germ layers, the ectoderm and the endoderm. Simpler animals, such as sea sponges, have 1 germ layer and lack true tissue or organization. So this one just has 1. All the more complex animals, from flatworms to humans, are triploblastic. See this again?
Triploblast.
Yeah, triploblastic with 3 germ layers, a mesoderm, which is in the middle one, as well as ectoderm and endoderm. The mesoderm allows them to develop true organs. Very interesting. So here is for humans right here. So you have the ectoderm is the outer one, then it folds inwards, the endoderm, then you also have a mesoderm in between. Very fascinating. Let's continue further. So this is figure right here. This is jackweston.com, and it shows you where these germ layers are eventually differentiated into. So the ectoderm, the ectoderm is the outer one, and that forms the epidermis of skin and its derivatives, including sweat glands and hair follicles, epithelial lining of mouth and anus, cornea and lens of eye, nervous system, sensory receptors in epidermis, adrenal medulla, tooth enamel, epithelium of pineal and pituitary glands. So basically, yeah, epidermis and other nerve stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting. So this setup over here, I'm not going to go over all of these specific points there, but just to illustrate the general regions or tissues where the germ layers form. So now the mesoderm, in between the notochord, the skeletal system, the muscular layer of stomach and intestine, the excretory system, circulatory and lymphatic systems, reproductive systems except germ cells, dermis of skin, lining of body cavity, adrenal cortex. So you got the skeletal system, some other muscular systems, etc. This is more on the skin and nerves, and this is the muscles and skeletons. And now the endoderm, the epithelial lining of digestive tract, epithelial lining of respiratory system, lining of urethra, urinary bladder, and reproductive systems, and reproductive system, liver, pancreas, thymus, thyroid, and parathyroid glands. So basically, this is the inner linings of these organs, of the internal organs. Yeah, especially with the digestive system and breathing systems, etc. This is very, very interesting. Yeah, so this is the endoderm. This goes right here. The mesoderm goes here, and then the ectoderm goes there. Fascinating stuff. Indeed. Let's just erase all this and continue further. Let's just erase this. All right, so continue further. So, this was Jack Weston. So, over 1.5 million living animals have been described, of which around 1 million are insects, but it has been estimated that there are over 7 million animal species in total. They have complex interactions with each other and their environments, forming intricate food webs. That's pretty interesting. So you have 1.5 million animals have been described, 1 million are insects, and there are estimated 7 million animal species in total that haven't. And then, so 5.5 million haven't been described. Very interesting. So this has forming an intricate food web. So a food web is a natural interconnection of food chains and are a graphical representation of what eats what in an ecological community. Yeah, so let's just take a look at this food web. So here's a freshwater aquatic food web. The blue arrows show a complete food chain. The blue arrows right there. And then, this goes from, in this case, algae to the Daphnia. See this?
Daphnia, right.
So Daphnia, and this one here is
Gizzard shad.
the gizzard shad, and then largemouth bass.
Right word.
Yeah, so that's right arrow. So anyways, largemouth bass, and then great blue horn. So you have this this person fishing, and what happens here is, so you have a food chain, complete food chain, and you have algae is over here. Let's just look at the blue arrow right here. Let's bold this blue. So the blue arrows show a complete food chain. So you have this algae right here. Remember, they're primary producers, photosynthetic. They gain food. They create their own food from light and chemicals or whatever, etc. And then, so this goes over here, Daphnia. So algae goes to Daphnia. This eats the algae. And then Daphnia gets eaten by this gizzard shad. And then the largemouth bass eats the gizzard shad. Then you have the great blue heron, and that eats the large bass there. And then the human would presumably eat everything. So that's a complete food chain. You also have this one all coming to the human. This possibly too. Yeah, it's very interesting. So you have the producers right here. There's another one, coontail, a cattail. Yeah, so these produce their own food, and then you have the primary consumers that eat these foods, and you have the secondary that eat the primary consumers. Yeah, so producers, consumers over here, primary, secondary, and tertiary. You can consider that. And then what you have here is these other lines. So the blue lines represent one complete food chain. That's from here all the way to the end. And then this right here, this orangish line, represents a feeding relationship. So this goes to here, this goes to here, this goes to here, etc. And this goes everywhere. And these big lines right here, so represents this big arrow represents return of nutrients to the food chain through the actions of scavengers and decomposers. And you have here decomposers and scavengers. You have worm, crayfish, bacteria right here. Yeah, so each one of these right here as a decompose, etc., and the scavengers go and eat the remains, and decomposers decompose remains, etc. So this from even the humans, and all of these all go back down to here. Crayfish eats that. Crayfish can eat these actually, as well as looks like, it's also a scavenger, etc. And you have the worms, bacteria, and other setups over there. That should be fungi as well somewhere there. Anyways, so you have all of this inside. But yeah, this is for aquatic one. So anyways, you have the setup right here. So it's very, very interesting. Let's continue further. So a food chain is a linear network of links in a food web starting from producer organisms such as grass or trees, which use radiation from the sun to make their food, and ending at an apex predator like grizzly bears or killer whales. And yeah, as well as these right here, I'll call this right here.
Detritivores.
Yeah, so detritivores or Detritivores. Yeah, I think it is pronounced Detritivores. So anyways, I just have to search that up. Like earthworms or woodlice or decomposer species such as fungi or bacteria. So yes, as like I stated here, so bacteria, fungi, etc. Yeah, so that is a food chain. Starts from the producer all the way to the apex consumer or predator. Anyways, continue here. Here is an illustration here. So here's a food chain in a Swedish lake. So you have osprey right here. Let's play this.
Osprey feet.
Yes, osprey feed on northern pike, which in turn feed on perch. See this?
Perch.
Yeah, perch, which eat bleak, which eat crustaceans. So you have set up over here. This bird would eat this fish right here. So you have the osprey feed on northern pike. And northern pike eats this fish right here, which feed on perch, which eat bleak right here, and then which eat crustaceans, like these crab setups over there. That's very interesting. Let's continue further. So an apex predator, also known as an alpha predator or top predator, is a predator at the top of a food chain without natural predators. So you have, this could be considered apex in this food chain there. Predation is a biological interaction where one organism, the predator, kills and eats another organism, its prey. So prey and predator relationship over there. Now here is a setup here. Interestingly here, so a great white shark bottom was originally considered the apex predator of the ocean. However, the killer whale on top has proven to be a predator of the shark. That's pretty interesting. That's even bigger there. Yeah, so eats the great white shark. Going further, so Detritivores, see this pronunciation?
Detritivore.
Or Detritivores, also known as Detritivores or Detritivores. See this?
Detritivores.
Yeah, here or Detritivores, and this is Detritivores. See this pronunciation?
Detritivores.
Detritivores, and you have this detritus.
Detritus feet.
Or detritus feeders or detritus eaters. So let's go back to here, the first one.
Detritivores.
So let's go back to detritivores, or these other terms you could use for them, are heterotrophs that obtain nutrients by consuming or eating detritus, which is decomposing plant and animal parts as well as feces. And here is one such detritivore. So earthworms are soil-dwelling detritivores. Right here, very interesting. And decomposers are organisms that break down dead or decaying organisms. They carry out decomposition, a process possible by only certain kingdoms, such as fungi. The terms detritivore and decomposer are often used interchangeably, but they describe different organisms. Detritivores are usually arthropods, or insects, etc., and help in the process of remineralization. Yeah, so detritivores perform the first stage of remineralization by fragmenting the dead plant matter, and then this allows decomposers to perform the second stage of remineralization. Yeah, so you have detritivores fragment the dead plant matter, and then decomposers they perform the second stage of remineralization. Very interesting. And in biogeochemistry, remineralization or remineralization with Z refers to the breakdown or transformation of organic matter, those molecules derived from a biological source, into its simplest inorganic forms. Very interesting. Just take a look at this right here. So here's this figure from, this is iBiologia.com. So detritivore or detritivore versus vs decomposers. Yeah, or I think it's detritivore. I'll see the pronunciation again. All these words are not easy for me.
Detritivore.
Yeah, so detritivores. Detritivore versus decomposers. So detritivores eat the remains of dead plants and animals, and then decomposers break down, break down or decay organic matter and feed on it. Yeah, so these ones eat these up and fragment it, and these ones, they break down the organic matter further and feed on. Crabs, mites, earthworms, snails, and you have bacteria and fungi over there. Very fascinating stuff there. And now let's go continue further. So diversity of animals. So you have this over here. So from the top, first column, from top to bottom, first column right here, you have this right here. See this?
Ectoderm.
Ectoderm, or there's a starfish over there. So from left, and then the bottom one is this right here.
Nadaria.
Nadaria. So ignores the C there. Let's try that again.
Nadaria. Bivalve.
Bivalve.
Tardigrade.
The tardigrade, crustacean, and then this is arachnid. So that's spider there. There's the crustacean there, the crab, or the lobster. Yeah, lobster, etc. And then the next ones, this goes over here. This is some pretty interesting stuff there. This one's a tardigrade is over here. And this one here is a bivalve. And this on top is a Cnidaria or Cnidaria.
Nadaria.
Or Nadaria. If that doesn't pronounce the C. Anyways, the next one here is over here. Well, there's a tiger. All right, let's go here. So second column, sponge, insect, mammal, and then this is bryozoa.
Bryozoa.
So bryozoa. So there's a sponge right there. This one over here. And then you have this bug there, insect. Then you have a mammal, just in general. So insect, mammal, and then this right here is a bryozoa. Then you have the Achnothocephala, so right here. That is the, see this?
Acanthocephala.
Acanthocephala, and then this next one is flatworm. So there's a flatworm, that's a pretty interesting worm there. And then third column, you have this one right here. Is that a squid or something? This is a cephalopod.
Cephalopod.
So a cephalopod, then you have this next one.
Annelid.
Annelid is over here. It looks like a... Oh, actually, no, it's over here. Annelid. Very interesting. And this next one looks like an organ. And next one is over here.
Tunicate.
Yeah, tunicate. Then you have a fish. That's a pretty interesting fish. The next one's a bird. And then you have this right here.
And Phoronida.
Phoronida. So the Phoronida over there. Very interesting. Anyways, going further. So sponges, as we saw, sponge in the second column here, like that. So sponges, the members of the phylum Porphyria. Well, let's see this.
Porifera.
Or porifera, or a basal, or a basal. Let's see this pronunciation.
A basal.
A basal, or meaning the base. So we'll get to that in a bit. Metazoa. Let's see this pronunciation.
Metazoa.
This metazoa, or animal, clade as a sister of the diploblast, also called this right here.
Eumetazoa.
Also called eumetazoa. They are multicellular organisms that have bodies full of pores and channels, allowing water to circulate through them, consisting of jelly-like mesophyle.
Mesohyl sand.
Or mesohyl. Or mesohyl sandwich between two layers of cells. Yeah, so that's a mesohyl or mesohyl. I'm not sure which one it is, but we'll just go with mesohyl. So, MES note in genetics, a basal is the direction of the base or root of a rooted phylogenetic tree, or cladogram. See this?
Cladogram.
Yes, a cladogram. Very interesting. So basically, it's the you're talking about the clade as respect to coming out of the root there. So for example, here is an illustration here. This is from this figure. So you have the root of a phylogenetic tree, and then you have a basal clade number 1. So this is grouping right here. That's connected right to the root. So that's right at the base. And then what you have, if you have separate ones, you'll have a non-basal clade here, number 1, non-basal clade number 2, non-basal clade number 3. But if you group these all as one, then you have a basal clade number 2. Very fascinating stuff indeed. So going further right here. So this is sponges, a member of the phylum Porifera. Porifera, or basal clade, or animal clade, right here.
Metazoa.
Yeah, metazoa animal clade as a sister of the diploblast. So, for example, if you look at that right here for sponges, so let's just click this. This is Quizlet.com. So you have the ancestral protist, the common ancestor of all animals. And then what you end up having is this is the basal one here, porifera or porifera. So that's sponges is a basal one of this animal setup there. And then this and it's a sister of these this right here, this of the diploblast, a sister of the diploblasts of the diploblast clade, also called eumazoa.
Eumetazoa.
Or eumetazoa. So there's this eumetazoa over here. And then what you end up having is this right here. So there's the sponges, then you have this nidaria, and then these other setups over there. Lophotrochozoa, this one ectozoa, and then Detritivores or starfish there. Very interesting setup. So that is some very interesting setups over there. Anyways, continue further. Yeah, now let's look at the mesohyle, or let's see this again. Pronunciation.
Mesohyle.
Yeah, so the mesohyle, and this was discussed over here. Yeah, so they are multicellular organisms that have bodies full of pores and channels allowing water to circulate through them, consisting of jelly-like mesohyle sandwiched between two thin layers of cells. If cells, then this is the in-between jelly-like over here. So the mesohyle, formerly known as let's see this.
Mesenchyme or
mesenchyme or
as mesoglia.
Or mesoglia is the gelatinous matrix within a sponge. The mesohyle is composed of the following main elements: collagen, fibronectin-like, which is a high molecular weight glycoprotein molecules, and then galactin. Let's see this.
Galactins
Or galectin, which are specific sugar-binding proteins, and a minor component, dermapotin.
Dermatopontin.
Or dermatopontin. See that again.
Component. Dermatopontin.
Yes, so dermatopontin is a non-collagen structural protein. Anyways, continuing further. So collagen, so the main one is collagen. So collagen is the main structural protein in the extracellular matrix found in the body's various connective tissues. As the main component of connective tissue, it is the most abundant protein in mammals, making up from 25% to 35% of the whole body protein content. It is mostly found in connective tissue such as cartilage, bones, tendons, ligaments, and skin. And connective tissue is one of the 4 basic types of animal tissue, along with epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. It develops from the mesoderm. So mesoderm gets that connective tissue. Connective tissue is found in between other tissues everywhere in the body, including the nervous system. Very interesting. Yeah, so it's in between other tissues. So going further, so epithelial tissue, so this is the main type. Yeah, so 1 of 4. So it's 1 of 4 basic types of animal tissue, along with epithelial, muscle, and nervous. So look at epithelial. So epithelial tissue, or epithelium, is a thin, continuous protective layer of compactly packed cells with little intercellular matrix. Epithelial tissues line the outer surfaces of organs and blood vessels throughout the body, as well as the inner surfaces of cavities in many internal organs. An example is the epidermis, the outermost layer of skin. So yes, so you have skin basically on the outside as well as inside cavities of internal organs, which is interesting. And here's a type of epithelium. So types of epithelium, you have simple squamous. There's a simple cubicle. Yeah, these are just flat layers right here. You could have this simple columnar. Yeah, or columnar. So basically, you have these simple flat ones there. You have the cubicle, and you have these column-like cells. And then you can have stratified squamous. You could have strata of these on top. And you could also have stratified cuboidal. Yeah, so on top of these, cuboidal. And you could also have pseudo-stratified columnar. So it's pseudo-stratified. It's not exactly on top, but you have it looks like it's on top. And so you have these in between, etc. You could have transitional. You could have a difference of this. So you have cubicle inside. You have the this is a columnar, and you can have a simple squamous over there. So very interesting. Alright, so now let's look at cartilage, or cartilaginous tissue.
Cartilaginous
Or cartilaginous tissue. And this one is over here. Yeah, so the collagen is found in mostly found in connective tissue such as cartilage, and we'll go over bones, tendons, ligaments, and skin later. So you have cartilage or cartilaginous tissue is a resilient and smooth elastic tissue, rubber-like padding that covers and protects the ends of long bones at the joints and nerves, and it is a structural component of the rib cage, the ear, the nose, the bronchial tubes, which are conducting air in lungs, and the intervertebral discs, and many other components. It is not as hard and rigid as bone, but is much stiffer and much less flexible than muscle. Yeah, so it's not. It's in between bone and muscle there, in terms of its property. So a tendon or sinew. Let's see this.
Sinew.
Sinew is a tough, high tensile strength band of tense, fibrous connective tissue that connects muscle to bone. Yeah, so this is the tendon over here. So we have cartilage, tendon over there, and ligament as well. So ligament, yes, this is a tough, high tensile strength band of tense, fibrous connective tissue that connects muscle to bone. And a ligament is a fibrous connective tissue that connects bones to other bones. So tendon connects muscle to bone. Bold that. And then a ligament connects bone to bone. It's a very interesting setup there. And this connects, so just bones to bones. Skin is the layer of usually soft, flexible outer tissue covering the body of a vertebrate animal with three main functions: protection, regulation, and sensation. And again, skin is so it's a main component is collagen. So it's mostly found in connective tissue such as cartilage, bones, tendons, ligaments, and skin. Very interesting. Continue further. So in biology, the extracellular matrix, because remember right here, this extracellular matrix. This is the so when we discussed it here. So epithelial tissue, thin, continuous protective layer of compactly packed cells with little intracellular matrix. This doesn't have much of that. So in biology, the extracellular matrix is a three-dimensional network consisting of extracellular molecules, macromolecules, and minerals such as collagen, enzymes, glycoproteins, and hydroxyapatite.
And hydroxyapatite.
Or hydroxyapatite. Yeah, so hydroxyapatite, which is naturally occurring mineral, CA5PO4 3, and this is all three on the top there. Should be this, and then an OH there that provides structural and biochemical support to surrounding cells. Yeah, very interesting setup there. So let's continue further. So here is a stovepipe sponge. What kind of name is that? But yeah, it's very interesting. Look at this sponge there. Make this here. That is quite the setup there. Let's continue further. So the majority, about 97% of animal species are invertebrates. It does not have a vertebrate or vertebral column, which are animals that neither possess nor develop a vertebral column. See the pronunciation?
Vertebral
column, commonly known as a backbone or spine, derived from the notochord. See this?
Notochord.
Yes, notochord. This includes all animals apart from the subphylum Vertebrata, or Vertebrata. See this?
Vertebrata.
Yes, a Vertebrata. Familiar examples of invertebrates include arthropods, which are insects, arachnids, spiders, scorpions, etc., crustaceans, and myriapods, or myriapods.
Myriapods,
such as millipedes, centipedes, etc., and mollusks of the family of the phylum Mollusca. See this again?
Mollusca.
Yeah, which involves chitons or chitons. See this?
Chiton.
Yeah, chiton, snails, bivalves, squids, octopus, etc. And you also have this right here, the annelid, earthworms and leeches. And this is the cnidarians or cnidarians.
Cnidarians.
Cnidarians, it doesn't pronounce a C. Yeah, so it doesn't actually have the C. I Googled it, it still doesn't have it. So Cnidarians. So you have, which are hydras, jellyfishes, sea anemones. See this pronunciation?
Sea anemone.
Or sea anemones. Anemones. Sea anemones and corals. Many invertebrate taxa have a greater number and variety of species than the entire subphylum of Vertebrata. Yeah, so all these spiders, etc., these are examples of invertebrates. And a whole bunch of insects, octopus, earthworms, and so on that don't have vertebrates. So many invertebrate taxa alone, just a taxa, have a greater number and variety of species than the entire subphylum of Vertebrata. Absolutely fascinating. MES note, so this is 97% of the all animal species are invertebrates. So MES note, the vertebral column or vertebral column.
Vertebral column.
Yeah, so the vertebral column, also known as the backbone or spine, is part of the axial skeleton.
Axial skeleton.
Or the axial skeleton, that's along the axis. The vertebral column is the defining characteristic of a vertebrate in which the notochord, which is a flexible rod of uniform composition, found in all chordates or chordates.
Chordates.
Yeah, chordates has been replaced by a segmented series of bone, and these are the vertebrae. See this?
Vertebrae.
Yeah, vertebrae, and separated by intervertebral discs. The vertebral column houses the spinal canal, a cavity that encloses and protects the spinal cord. Yeah, very interesting. There are about 50,000 species of animals that have a vertebral column. The human vertebral column is one of the most studied examples. So the axial skeleton is the part of the skeleton that consists of the bones of the head and trunk, or central or core of a vertebrate. And you can see that over here. So diagram of the axial skeleton along the axis. So you have the vertebral column over here. There's a rib cage around it. And then you have the ossicles or inner eye, skull, and then the hyoid bone over there underneath. And basically going along the axis there. I accidentally shrunk it. So basically going along the axis over here. And the surrounding one around it, that axis bone there. So very, very interesting setup there. Let's continue further. Yeah, so the hyoid, let's see the pronunciation here.
The hyoid is
so the hyoid is anchored by muscles from the anterior, posterior, and inferior directions and aids in tongue movement and swallowing. So you have this hyoid bone right here. It's pretty much in the air there from other bones, but connected with muscles from the anterior, posterior, and inferior directions. Yeah, basically from the front, sides, backward, etc. And here I just added quickly this right here. So the anterior is the front, posterior is back, and then inferior is the down directions. And then let's just take a refresher there from way earlier in this video. And if you look at directional, let's look at direction. This should be directional. So anatomical directional reference. So scroll all the way back up here. So we have the directional references over here. So we have so this is caudal. Caudal is from Latin caudum. See this one here again.
caudum.
The caudum meaning tail. So you have this set up here. So we can make this even a bit bigger. So you have the cranials going upwards, caudal going down to the tail. Then you have the anterior is the front over there, or ventral. Then you have the posterior or dorsal in the back. Then you have the superior is going up, and there's anterior, inferior down. So there's the inferior, there's the posterior that we're talking about, and there's the inferior. Yeah, there's inferior, posterior, and anterior in the front. And yeah, there's superior is on the top, etc. So let's go backwards over now, so to the anterior. All right, so that's the front. Posterior is back. Inferior is the downwards. So the hyoid is anchored by muscles from the anterior front, or posterior back, and inferior down directions, and aids in tongue movement and swallowing. It is the only bone in the human body that is not connected to any other bones nearby. That's an interesting one. I had no idea about this bone right there. So over there. It's pretty fascinating. So connected from the back, down, and front. So yes, very interesting. and not the top. Okay, going further. So the position of hyoid bone shown in red there. And here's shape of hyoid bone there. It's pretty interesting stuff. Looks like a jaw of a saber tooth with a small tooth there, small teeth. Anyways, going further. In the vertebrate spinal column, each vertebra, plural vertebrae, let's see this pronunciation.
Vertebrae.
Yeah, plural vertebrae or singular vertebra is an irregular bone with a complex structure composed of bone and some hyaline cartilage.
Hyaline cartilage.
The proportions of which vary according to the segment of the backbone and the species of vertebrate. It's very interesting. Continue further. So hyaline cartilage is the glass-like or hyaline. Press here. Hyaline, but translucent cartilage found on many joint surfaces. Joint surfaces. It is also most commonly found in the ribs, nose, larynx, and trachea. See the pronunciation?
Larynx and trachea.
Or trachea, not trachea. Anyways, so here is translucent, just to illustrate that. Comparisons of of 1, opacity, 2, translucency, and 3, transparency. Behind each panel is a star. So if a star behind each one, so if it's opacity or opaque. Yeah, let's click that again.
Opacity.
Alright, so opacity. I don't know why that guy was talking. Let's go back to this one.
1 opacity.
Yeah, so opacity, translucent. So opacity here, so you can't see that. If you have the different colors right here, black, red, and white, you can't see the star behind it. So if you have translucency, that's in between. So you could see a vague resemblance of the star. And if you have transparency, you could see the star from any one of these colors over there in front of it, because they're transparent. You could see beyond it, and see the star over there. And if it's over here, translucent, you can see barely through it. All right, continue further. So an invertebral disc or invertebratal disc. Let's see this again.
Intervertebral disc.
Yeah, so intervertebral. This is for the term. So intervertebral disc or intervertebral of fiber cartilage lies between adjacent vertebrae in the vertebral column. Intervertebral discs consist of an outer fibrous ring called the annulus fibrous disci intervertebralis. So that's the outer fibrous disc right here. That's the annulus fibrous. Let's pronounce it. Let's see the whole pronunciation.
The annulus fibrosus discus intervertebralis.
All right. So the annulus fibrosus discus or disci. Discus intervertebralis, which surrounds an inner gel-like center, the nucleus pulposus. See this pronunciation?
The nucleus pulposus.
Yeah, the nucleus pulposus. So here's an intervertebral disc. Here's a lateral view on the sideways. Here's a superior view from the top. So you have the nucleus pulposus. See that again?
Nucleus pulposus.
Yeah, nucleus pulposus, that's that inner gel-like center. Then you have the surrounding annulus fibrosus. It's the outer fibrous ring, so you can see the fibers around there. And then you have this intervertebral foramen that's in this opening there. And then there's the vertebral body over here. Very interesting. A foramen, let's see this pronunciation.
Foramen is
a foramen is an open hole in animals. So like that in there. Very interesting. In anatomy, the notochord is a flexible rod formed of a material similar to cartilage. If a species has a notochord in any stage of its life cycle, the keyword is any stage, it is by definition a chordate. Alright, I just want to make a note here, and this chordate, I've been calling it chordate. If you check the pronunciation,
Chordate.
Yes, it's Chordate, and if I Google it, the pronunciation, or check other sources, sometimes they say Chordate. And I've been calling it chordate just because for example, Notochord, it's not Notochord or Notochod. So I'll interchange either of them just because I like saying chordate. So anyways, chordate or chardate or chaudate. So you have, here's a chordate features. This figure is from meritnation.com. So you have the post-anal tail at the bottom here. And then you have the notochord over here, goes all the way over. There's a thin flexible rod formed of a similar material to cartilage. Then there's the pharyngeal pouches over here, and there's a hollow dorsal nerve cord over behind. And dorsal just means backside, so behind this notochord. So continue further. Before we get further into these, let's look at these pharyngeal pouches more closely, just because there's similar terms that pretty much are just slightly different from the pouch itself. So this figure is from osmosis.org. So pharyngeal arches, pouches, and clefts. The fifth arch / cleft pouch, etc., is not shown because it either quickly regresses after formation or doesn't form at all. So we have pharyngeal apparatus. So this is set up over here. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 doesn't form or regresses. You have the sixth one over here. And notice how each one of these has this is the arch. So you have the arch like this set up over there. So on the outer sides, you have the arch on this side. This is mesoderm, weeks 4 to 5 during formation. And this is from primitive pharynx. And then you have, this is from the head side. So if you look at it up, head or cranial, and then caudal to the tail, just to show you the direction. And now you have the pouch is on the inside, is on the endoderm, and the cleft is on the ectoderm side. So inside, outside. And then, then they have 2, 3, and 4, and the 5 is not shown just because it's either quickly regresses or it doesn't even form at all. So just keep that in mind. So the arches over there on inside, outside. The cleft is on the outside, the pouch is on the inside. Alright, so in the embryonic development of vertebrates, pharyngeal pouches form on the endodermal side between the pharyngeal arches, so between them, on the endodermal side. The pharyngeal grooves or clefts form the lateral ectodermal, so just highlight these. Ectodermal, and then this one is endodermal. So ectodermal surface of the neck region to separate the arches. The pouches line up with the clefts. The pouches, line up with the clefts like this. And these thin segments become gills in fish, which is quite amazing. And you can see that here. It looks like gills over there. So very, very interesting. So going further, the pharyngeal arches, also known as visceral arches. See the pronunciation here.
Visceral.
Yeah, so visceral arches are structures seen in the embryonic development of vertebrates that are recognizable precursors for many structures. The pharyngeal groove or bronchial groove or pharyngeal cleft is made up of ectoderm, unlike its counterpart, the pharyngeal pouch on the endodermal side. Yeah, so we already pretty much covered that over here. Going further, the dorsal hollow nerve cord, or here it says nerve cord. It might be a typo, So just you be the judge. Yeah, so the dorsal hollow nerve cord is a hollow cord dorsal or behind the dorsal to the notochord. It is formed from a part of the ectoderm that rolls, forming the hollow tube. This is important as it distinguishes chordates or chordates from other animal phyla such as annelids, which are ringworms, etc. Yeah, ringworms, etc. And arthropods. These ones have exoskeletons such as insects, crabs, etc. Crustaceans, which have solid ventral. See this one here. Ventral tubes. Dorsal means the back. The quote back. Yeah, the backside. So dorsal means the backside, as opposed to ventral, which is the belly side of an organism. And you can see this is behind it. The belly would be in the front here, and this is behind. So hollow dorsal nerve cord. And we could see that directional setup we had earlier. Directional. So we go to directional, anatomical directional reference, and they should have it here. Yes, so the ventral or dorsal. So ventral is in the front, dorsal is back, or posterior or anterior, etc., which is quite interesting. Alright, so we are back now. That's very interesting. Let's continue further. The pharynx. The pharynx, where plural is pharynges. See the pronunciation here?
Pharynx.
Or pharynx. Alright, I have to call it pharynges. Yeah, just pause the video and just check Google and other sources, and yeah, they call it pharynges. So I don't know why this is calling it. See this again?
Plural. Pharynx.
Pharynx. Okay, so I think it's just a mistake by the algorithm. But anyways, I'm going to call it pharynges just because that is what we've been calling this, pharyngeal groove, etc. And even if you click here, it says pharyngeal.
Pharyngeal.
Yes, or pharyngeal, as opposed to pharyngeal. Alright, so the pharynx, or plural pharynges, and this is where these pharyngeal grooves come from, the name, as part of the throat behind the mouth and nasal cavity and above the esophagus and trachea. These are the tubes going down to the stomach and the lungs. Yeah, so for example, if you have a look at over here, so you have the head and neck overview, so you have the nasal cavity above there, there's lips, this jaw, the tongue, the palate, oral cavity, and there's the pharynx over here, and there's the larynx on this opening with the voice box over there. We'll get to that later in this video. And there's the esophagus going to the food, or going to the stomach, and then the trachea the trachea is the tubes going to the lungs. And the trachea would be past this larynx, so that's where the air goes in. The esophagus goes where the food goes in. Yeah, and here I quickly just added this part right here. This is from later in the video, but I thought I might as well put it here, and we'll talk about the bronchi later in the video. So anyways, this is conducting passages of the human respiratory system. So we have the upper respiratory tract, there's a nasal cavity, there's a pharynx over there, and there's a larynx over here. And the larynx over there, and there's the lower respiratory tract. So notice this tube would go down to the esophagus, to the gut, and to the stomach. But this lower respiratory tract has a trachea over here, going to the lungs. There's a primary bronchi over here, and there's the lungs over here. And then we'll go over that later in the video. And the larynx, commonly called the voice box, is an organ in the top of the neck involved in breathing, producing sound, and protecting the trachea against food aspiration, which is suction into airway. So so here would be preventing the food from going in. It's just for the air, etc. So we have to close it in whenever you're eating. Anyways, continue further. The spinal canal, or vertebral canal, or spinal cavity, is the canal that contains the spinal cord within the vertebral column. Yes, you have a canal or water pathway, or fluid pathway, or just a pathway. And so here's how it looks like. Here's the body cavities. So you have the cranial cavity just opening. There's a dorsal cavity, is from the back side all the way down to the bottom. And the ventral cavity is the belly side, or the front side. And there's a thoracic cavity over here, the top part. And there's the abdominal cavity over at the bottom part here. And it's separated by this lining underneath there. And there's a pelvic cavity here. There's the abdominal cavity, and there's the abdominopelvic cavity, if you group these together. And there's a spinal cavity inside this setup here. There's a spinal one all the way here, and there's the cranial cavity over there. Very interesting setup here. Alright, so we read up on the spinal canal, which houses the spinal cord in the vertebral column. So let's read this up on the spinal cord. So the spinal cord is a long, thin, tubular structure made up of nervous tissue, which extends from the medulla oblongata. I think that's how you pronounce it. Let's see this.
Medulla oblongata
medulla oblongata, or oblongata. That's how I've been used to being. That's how I've been used to pronouncing that. So I'll stick with that. So medulla oblongata, or oblongata, in the brainstem. So it extends from the medulla oblongata in the brainstem to the lumbar region of the vertebral column. It encloses the central canal of the spinal cord, which contains cerebrospinal fluid. Let's see the pronunciation here.
Contains cerebrospinal fluid.
Cerebrospinal fluid, or cerebrospinal fluid. And the brain and spinal cord together make up the central nervous system. So the brain is inside the cranial cavity, and the spinal cord is inside the spinal cavity over there. Spinal cavity there. or spinal canal. Let's read up on the medulla oblongata or oblongata. So the medulla oblongata, or simply medulla, is a long stem-like structure which makes up the lower part of the brainstem. Interesting. So continue further. So the brainstem or brainstem with a space is the posterior or the back stalk-like part of the brain that connects the cerebrum, which is the largest part of the brain, with the spinal cord. In tetrapod anatomy, so tetrapod is four-legged or four-limbed species. The lumbar is an adjective that means of or pertaining to the abdominal segment of the torso or trunk, so just the lower area here. And cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, is a clear, colorless fluid, body fluid contained or found within the tissue that surrounds the brain and spinal cord of all vertebrates. And here is a pretty detailed setup here. So the spinal cord in yellow connects the brain to nerves throughout the body. So there's a spinal cord in yellow there, and there's the brain over on the top there. There's a whole bunch of different nerves that it connects to the spinal cord. So this nerves over here, and etc. Yeah, a whole bunch of nerves here. I'm not going to go over those. And there's a central nervous system set up there. There's the brain stems is over here. There's a spinal cord, and there's a cerebellum. And there's the or the cerebellum. And then there's the cerebrum, the largest part of the brain over there, and so on. There's the cranial nerves, and this is thoracoabdominal nerves, etc. Anyways, more nerves, and this is bronchial nerves over here from the lungs, or brachial. I think that's from the lungs. It goes all the way to the hands. Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what those types of nerves are. But anyways, continue further. There's more nerves here. The sacral nerves, the pudendal nerves, and the lumbar plexus, and there's nerves over there. Anyways, lots of nerves that carry the electric signals to pretty much function and direct movement / flexing of the muscles and so on to move the body. So in contrast, vertebrates comprise all species of animals with the subphylum Vertebrata or Vertebrata. Let's see this.
Vertebrata.
Yeah, Vertebrata, such as Chordates or Chordates with backbones. Yeah, so they have Chordates with so it has that it has a notochord plus this backbone over there. Vertebrates represent the overwhelming majority of the phylum Chordata. Let's see the pronunciation here.
Chordata.
Or Chordata. Okay, so Chordata or Chordata or Chordata. With currently 69,963 species described. So that's a bunch of vertebrates there. Vertebrates include such groups as jawless fishes. See how you pronounce fishes or fishies?
Fishes.
They're fishes. Jawed vertebrates such as cartilaginous. Let's see this pronunciation here.
As cartilaginous.
Yeah, cartilaginous fishes such as sharks, rays, and ratfish, and bony fishes, tetrapods such as amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. MES note: amphibians are ectothermic. Ectothermic, or where the internal heat generation is very low. Tetrapods, so four-legged or four-limbed vertebrates, of the backbone of the class Amphibia. They inhabit a wide variety of habitats, with most species living within terrestrial land, as well as here fossorial. See this?
Fossorial
Fossorial, which is underground via digging, or arboreal. See this?
Arboreal,
which is on trees, or freshwater aquatic ecosystems. Thus, amphibians typically start out as larvae.
Larvae
living in water, but some species have developed behavioral adaptations to bypass this initial phase there, which is quite interesting.